Record. I did the record thing. Here's the intro. Here it is.
Are we
Thanks for
recording?
tuning into the Carrie Hunter podcast. Here's your hosts, Bryce and Kevin.
Welcome back to the Carrie Handle Podcast with your hosts, Bryce and Kevin. I think I just made up a new intro. I guess I'm just saying that. How are you, Kevin? How are you?
I'm well, Bryce, and how are you?
I'm
How are
doing
we?
well. Let's introduce our very esteemed guest. Who do we have with us today?
None other than Chris Costa and Costa Ludus.
Yes, thank you for joining the show, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So, without any, it just kind of like, can you give the 5 people that may not know who you are, can you give them just a quick kind of intro?
Let's see. Joined the military when I was 17, the Coast Guard. Spent most of my time doing the law enforcement side in the Coast Guard on our tactical law enforcement teams. Finished up down in South America and then joined a company called Applied Marine Technologies that was located outside Virginia Beach. The 2 former commanding officers of Dev Group and one of Red Cell owned the company. They were the owners. Spent 7, almost 8 years there working government contracts for Homeland Security, mostly. And then started up Magpul Dynamics. Then we hired Travis after that. And the rest was kind of a little bit of history, I guess. We started a DVD series. We started training. We started assisting Magpul and making more of what we call theory-based products at the time, more designed around the shooting aspect of it. Then after that, went out on my own and have been doing it ever since. Still work with civilians, military, law enforcement.
Yeah, so you are primarily a trainer now. So, and you have been for a while now, but through Costa Ludus, it's just kind of continuing the training in terms of like Leo and civilian.
Correct, and
Okay.
military as well.
Oh, and military. Okay, very cool. So, and now, kind of speed ran through that. That was perfect. So, perfect framework.
You said a quick elevator pitch.
That was the best 10-second elevator pitch
I know.
we've had in the last like 3
Normally,
episodes.
Normally we have to like massage out details. It's like, what about this thing? Pretty much hit the nail on the head. So in terms of Coast Guard to Magpul Dynamics, I guess I wasn't familiar with the genesis, as it were. I just randomly started seeing the Magpul Dynamics videos as a kid, and I was big into airsoft. So there was always a massive linking between the two in terms of culturally. So I lived in Maryland, so I wasn't necessarily able to own the cool guns or go to the classes or anything like that, but I was able to watch Magpul Dynamic videos. So growing up watching those, it was always really interesting to see the influence in terms of firearms training, because previous to Magpul Dynamics, with the exception of like Front Sight or maybe some of the other like Thunder Ranch, obviously, I didn't think it was as mainstream in terms of firearms training. It seemed like more of a military or tactical kind of space, and it was less concealed carry. But one of the first things I ever saw was your concealed carry classes, which I thought was really interesting because it made it way more attainable and approachable to people that didn't carry a gun necessarily for work. So it was what was the catalyst for Magpul Dynamics in terms of like it being separated or I guess linked to Magpul? How did the two become merged?
So do you remember the Magpul Masada when they designed that before they unfortunately gave it to Remington and Bushmaster? I wish the company, being as skilled as it was, would have just continued to build the gun. But as far as I know from the head shed, they didn't want liability being linked into the firearms directly, lawsuits, things like that. I think if they could go back in time, they should have done it. But I had worked with Magpul prior to me accepting a job with them. So go back to the AMTI days, we had a lot of dev group guys, we were mostly doing counterterrorism contracts for Homeland Security, CQB, ChemBio, running, PAPRs and SCBAs into structures and stuff like that. But we had many divisions within the company because we had ex-DARPA people there, we had chem bio freaks there, and we had Bill Shepard, the astronaut, ran our skunk works. We were making RC cards with C4 on them and stuff. We had a
That's
lot of
cool.
really interesting things. Um, and then during that time period, we were approached by a company called TDI, who represented a Swiss company, and you guys now know it as the Chris Super V, or
Okay.
however they call it.
Yeah.
When it was introduced to me, it looked like a spray nozzle. Like, I shit you not, it looked like a spray nozzle. The only thing recognizable of it was a pair ordnance magazine sticking out of it, and it was like a handle, and it just had a little mag that went in there, and then you had like a little side bolt thing, and it had its little crisp the way it collapses.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, it would run for about 2 rounds, and I guess Picatinny Arsenal had been working on it for a year. And the theory is, no offense to those guys, but if you give them $1 million in a year, they'll try to make a 16 penny nail better. So they're they're
Yes.
they're they're not exactly moving at the speed of light there. So, and there's whole Magpul stories with that, which is kind of funny when they showed him the first windowed aluminum magazine. But Picatinny Arsenal was standing there saying it couldn't be done, and the owner of Magpul reaches into his bag and shows it to him. Yeah, like it was comical, along with a self-leveling follower that they had been working on for almost 2 years. And Rich is like, "You mean this? This has a
Yes.
patent on it, just FYI." And they're
Incredible.
crapping their pants. So what happens is TDI approaches us and they're like, "Hey, listen, we want to build this gun." And this is at a really pinnacle time. And my first words to him was, "We've just been getting rid of the MP5s across the United States
Mhm.
slowly but surely. We were right in that middle of the road stage, and M4s and shorties were coming out." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You're about to introduce a 45 submachine gun." And the whole premise of it was to grab the gun one-handed while you throw a troop over your shoulder, and then you just seamlessly run full auto while shit's blowing up behind you
Oh
and your
yeah.
buddy's on your back. You know
Oh,
what I mean? Like
like in the
that.
movies.
Exactly. I shit you not. That's the way it was completely described to me. And I guess, you have sex at the very end with like the super
Oh, of
spy.
course.
You know what I
You
mean?
have
Like,
to. I mean, that's just
putting
part of
guy
it.
or
There's
girl
a
nowadays
Harrier
or any of
jet.
the colors. Back
Yeah.
then it was only, two variants, but yeah, the Harrier jet's a must. You're thinking True
Yeah,
Lies.
right.
So
You gotta have.
so with that, that's where the relationship started, and Magpul was brought in on a project to originally work on a stock. And I tried to talk to Mark LaRue at the time to work on a rail, but Mark was so busy with his own stuff, he was like, hard pass.
Yeah.
And really, Magpul took that gun and made that gun for them, is a reality of what happened. I remember Mike Mayberry, which was one of the owners and engineers. He was on a plane flight. He called me and he said, "Hey, listen," he goes, "this is going to sound really weird." He's like, "I know you're used to the safety and selector for full auto being in the same switch." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Is it a problem if the safety is just a safety, but the full auto selector is a little more forward?" And I was like, "Well, it's just not, people aren't going to be used to it." But I go,
Mhm.
"Mike, you're telling me you could leave the gun on full auto and just flip a safety really quickly, instead of trying to flip a complete 90
Yeah.
degree turn like you do on an
Oh,
M4." And I was like, "So you could literally go into a room, burst, and go right back on safe without having to, as an example, a Navy trigger group, you got a lot of positions on that
Yeah.
thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah, you do.
So that becomes problematic. And so I swear by the time about 15 days were over, we already had like a prototype chassis, and we're firing that thing. And the Magpul guys, Mike in particular, just crushed that thing right out the gate. So that's kind of, where these two roads kind of met really quickly. At first, how the heck did I even know Magpul at that time? And the reason why I knew him was on I think it was the 93 Bravo. I think that's the old ratcheting stock that Rich
Yeah.
designed that looks
Yeah,
like
pretty
no other stock
it's like a weird
on the planet.
UBR, I guess you could.
Yeah, yeah, it was the
Yeah.
first of
Yeah.
the UBR, absolutely.
Right.
So we flew out there, and then what happened was Drake Clark, which has been there still to this day. He was, I think, first, if not second employee. I think it was like the first employee, and now he's like an executive there. He had to go to Hawaii, so he missed out on the future weapons
I was
video.
just gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, so that's, wow, that's a whole nother thing, because that guy is, wow, that I loved it when it was future weapons,
Yeah.
because he just shot the guns, blew
Yep.
stuff up. It was great.
Yep.
I really
The
really
Reaper
liked his character.
episode was my
Yep.
favorite intro.
Yep. Told
Where
you
he's
some
like the
stuff about it.
sniper with
Yep.
the thing of the backpack.
Mm. Then it became Future Weapons with Mac.
Right.
And after that, the show took on a different flavor. When we got contacted, I flew out to Arizona to meet part of the crew,
Mhm.
and they did this where we had to submit all this paperwork and all this thing about the gun and the changing barrels and switching lowers to an AK lower from an M4, all this stuff. Of course, Max shows up about 2 hours late, looks at the book when he comes in, throws it down, and he's like, "This is what we're gonna do," and we're all like, "Oh my
Oh.
gosh!" So I
What
take
about
the
all the prep
gun
work?
on the indoor range at Scottsdale. I throw it down real quick. I shoot a 0. I don't know what we're gonna be doing, but if he's gonna be demonstrating with this gun, I want him to shoot it and like verify it. So he puts it on the bench, he shoots it, and he's like, "Cool, we got it." And I'm just like looking at him. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we got a good 0." Well, the producer walks in. He wasn't even in there. There's no cameras. And he goes up to the producer and he's like, "We got it." And the producer's like, "We got what?" He's like, he's like, "What?" They already start getting in an argument. He starts yelling at him, right? Now, this is where I completely within the next 2 minutes lost confidence. They start the cameras. He takes the same target he just shot from a bench, puts it all the way on a backstop, 25 yards, stands up fast as he could. Boom, boom, boom. Brings it back. And it's the 3 bullet holes he used when he zeroed. And I was like, damn. I was
Wow.
like, this just sucks. And the whole
You
thing, when you started watching, he's like, "I'm with the Tavor, which is an Israeli gun built by guys that are in combat every day. There are 3 females currently being hostage right now. I'm going to go in as a one-man solo and rescue them all with this little robot that I've got next to me." That's, you were like, he just wanted to be in the movies. He just, yeah, it
I
just,
I
I,
mean, I like the whisper. Without the whisper,
it
Well,
was a
it's
how
not
else
terrible
would we
Mac.
turn.
know 416s eject like in full 180? Like, what do you
Yeah,
what
the
do you
Yeah.
upside
mean?
down.
That's not
Upside down.
quality
That was
information.
boom. That was mind blowing at the time.
Mind blowing. So that's how Magpul started. I kept in touch and stuff, and at the same time, you had Advanced Armament. If you remember those days, get a free tattoo and get a free can. Dude, they had the cult following going. So I did a lot of work with them, shooting and everything, and we filmed this fun just vehicle thing, right?
Mhm.
And I was sitting there at the place with Rich when we got done doing the future weapons thing, and he said, "Man, you ever think about doing this out on your own?" And I go, "Man, I don't know." I go, I'm I go, "I like working with the military right now and doing the job that I'm doing, so I'm not really sure." And he's like, "Well, if you ever change your mind, I could promise you 1 year, that's it, and then we'd reevaluate." He goes, "Because it's a risk to us as well." So at the same time, the Navy was trying to change a qual course and make it easier for guys to get through this selection process that we had. And at the same time, I was trying to make it harder. And we were in this final process, sending it to the other groups teaching this material. Because I was like, "Look, man, you can skate through this, and we know where these guys are going, and this isn't cool. I'm starting to get I don't feel comfortable signing my name on these
Right.
letters."
You don't want to push
Right.
them through because you know where they're going to end up, and they're going to end up in a bag if they're
Yeah,
not doing
and
it
and
right.
that's and I believe at the end of the day, when you know that, that's your responsibility. So I called Rich up again. It was like 8 months later, and I said, "Do you want to do this?" He said, "Yeah." So we filmed Art of the Carbine Part 1, but Disc 2 with AEC guys.
Okay.
And if you'll notice, Travis wasn't in there, and that's because we hadn't hired Travis yet.
Mm.
So Rich, we finally get the right mixture of teach, student shoots, demonstrate, student shoot, and we kind of figured that out with the production crew. Then he's like, "We're missing another character. We need to hire somebody else." And then I ended up meeting Travis, and we met. He was doing his own course down in Florida, so we met there real briefly, and it wasn't but maybe 3 weeks later, we're literally in a hotel room going, "What do you want to teach for carbine?" and and we really going to show how the us stepping into it ourselves, we kind of got caught up as well in the institutional inertia. We just taught what
Okay.
we were already teaching military.
Right.
sports, all the normal stuff. And it wasn't until that video was done that we both realized we're not trapped in that circle anymore. We can actually teach whatever we want to.
Yeah.
And that's where the pinnacle kind of changed for the videos to Magpul Dynamics to the direction that we were going. We just realized we don't have to keep doing the status quo.
Right.
And nobody can explain to us why we're still teaching the same stuff. So there was a lot of work that we did on that. Now you go back in time and some of it's still relevant. Um, you go back in time and some of it's not, right? Like
Yeah.
everything changes, tactics change, things
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it was you were talking about like what else was in the industry. You had Thunder Ranch, you had Front Sight, you had Blackwater at the time, because I did a lot of work there when I was in the military, meaning when I was in the Coast Guard,
Right.
and they were different. They were already teaching so much different. Al Clark and a guy named Dale McLennan, they were there, and they were the guys you wanted to go see. They were the guys taking it to the next level. They were guys running 226s up against people running 1911s on a plate rack and smoking them,
Right.
and I'm talking world-class shooters too. So they were taking the shooting aspect to a whole nother level. Then you had Gabriel Suarez videos, you had Kelly McCain, aka Jim Grover, at a Crucible. Those were the videos like I grew up on, where
Yeah.
it was like Sody Cam, just him talking to the camera. And that's why we were trying to be different with the Magpul videos, because
In
at a
terms of
certain point,
production and
Yeah.
yeah, you just got tired of hearing them, right?
yeah.
And I got tired of seeing myself on the video. But the cool thing was, as soon as that was over, you saw the students, and then you saw what? Travis, enter in
Right.
Travis. So the viewer kind of, it's kind of like watching Top Gear. You get the difference of all three perspectives. So not,
Yeah.
Right.
like maybe you gravitate to one of the guys, but not all the guys. And it was just a great mixture at that time.
And
Wow.
so in terms of, because I know Steve Fisher came in, when was he part of the kind of, like, I guess, ensemble? Because I saw him in one of the
So
shotgun videos, I think.
he was, absolutely. So Steve had come to a couple of the classes that I was doing, and Steve's a character, right? He's a good heart, good person. So at that time, the owner of Magpul asked Travis to take over as the CEO of Magpul. That kind of made me focus more on dynamics. So Travis wasn't on the road as much, even though he wanted to be. He was
Okay.
more on the other side of it. And
Mm.
due to the time and hours, you couldn't be on the road and try to do both of those at the same time. We went through a couple of the guys that was helping me. Usually at some point they got injured. There was a guy, Patrick Garcia was with us, Mike Lamb was with us. He ended up having to do knee surgery. And then Steve, during that time with Travis and I still involved in it, did the shotgun video with us,
Mhm.
because I knew he knew how to run a gauge.
Right.
Um, there's I know Rob Hott, I know he's older than me. I think he teaches shotgun still.
Mhm.
Obviously we lost Louis Auerbach, and so we've kind of delineated guys that are really good with the gauge,
Yeah.
and Steve was really good with the gauge. So we had him in a video, and then after it was like, hey, do you want to come on board? And that's kind of how that happened. And then Steve and I think for the next year and a half ish, or solid year, we were just running classes together until I left.
Mm. I remember seeing you. I don't know if you remember the Gun Websites YouTube channel videos.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember seeing you two in the like, especially with I remember the Surefire Quad 60s and like the split videos and those. I remember that. That's really funny. But in terms of your production, I'd have to say the first time, just in touching on the Magpul Dynamic stuff being a little bit different, or actually a lot different, kind of setting the tone in terms of gun entertainment and training. And I mean, because it was entertaining to watch, there was stuff to learn. It was not just the normal pistol qualification that
Dry.
people are used to,
Yeah. It
but
wasn't dry. It's very engaging.
the outtakes were half the reason you watched them. And one of my favorite series was the Precision Rifle series. That was not something
Mm.
even in my purview. I mean, granted, I was much younger, but I mean, you see it kind of taking off now. Well, I say now, it's been a few years. PRS has been kind of
Yeah.
popular in
Exploded.
NRL.
It's
Yeah.
been
Exploding.
exploding. You're right. It
Yeah, it
really
has.
has. Like like if you've been watching it kind of like I have in the last, 3 years, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, this is a mega sport now. You know what I mean? This was like in a sense, like the start of IPSIT whenever that happened when I
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
kid. You know what I mean? Just yeah, as I was a kid. So yeah, the interesting thing about the Hodnet video was like I can shoot, Travis can shoot, but we weren't spending time doing long range. That's
Mhm.
not what our military background was.
Right.
So we were trying to, if you remember in a handgun video, we had two Marines in there and they
Mhm.
worked over in Lejeune and they worked over at the sniper school over there. So the goal or what we were trying to do is Travis and I jump in and we had gotten it all approved to like learn from them. And this was going to be super cool where, you know, it was going to bring that spotlight to the Marine Corps. So their public affairs is all for it. They had seen the quality of their videos and we were now going to become the students. Stuff started happening in Afghanistan aggressively, and those guys moved over to Afghanistan to work with guys over there. So that kind of dropped what we were doing. I know I'd reached out to McMillan because I know there's a lot of good guys over there. You have a ton of great guys over on Sniper's Hide and GA Precision and all those guys that were like in the infancy stages, Badger Ordnance, like
Yeah.
the companies that's where you went to if you
Mhm.
even wanted to shoot something that was going to be an amazing gun, right?
Right.
And we still had no luck over there. So then we were doing a class in Cali, and Barry Duke was shooting in that class, and a guy named Buck Doyle. I think Buck was still in MARSOC at that time, and they were like, "Hey, you got to go see this guy Todd Hodnett. He is teaching shit like that's just like Jedi stuff." So we went out there with our producer. We flew out there. We we had I think I had my SR-25 and we had OBRs from LaRue. We zeroed out 100 real quick, confirmed, I think, trued our guns, which I didn't even know what the hell that was way back then, at like 1,000 or something like that, 900
Okay.
yards, 1,000 yards. And then our next shot was a mile. And I'm like, what the shit are we doing? Our producer, I hate to say this, man, our producer, Eric, he hit, he hit, before Travis and I did. He hit on his third shot at a mile, and it was just
Nice.
like, yeah, very just like soul crushing.
Nice.
And we sat down with Todd, and Todd was very worried about somebody stealing his stuff. And I'm like, Todd, it's going to happen anyways. They're
Yeah.
just not going to give you credit for it. I go, right now, when you come out with all this stuff, everybody's going to know where it came from.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to know you did this, and anybody else is just parroting Todd Hodnett shit, right? Uh, then we already had Steve on board, so Steve goes out there, I go out there, Travis goes out there, and a lot of people didn't know we had a skydive division, mostly for special operations. So our one of our guys, Michael Lavella, which ran the canopy side of the house, he picked it up so fast. I mean, Todd usually had, I can't remember the size square steel he had. It wasn't exactly IPSC. It was probably C-zone-ish.
Okay.
But then above that, he put like an 8-inch head plate. And dude, like Mike was smoking head plates while Travis and I are just trying to we're just trying to get like hits off wind calls, and you're still trying to understand this whole wind thing, and we're trying to understand the H-59 reticle. That
Yeah, the horse.
was
Right.
Yeah.
that was very I don't know if it just come out, but let's just say a lot of people still wasn't jumping on board. I mean, a lot of guys are still showing up with like mil dots and
Right.
MOA turrets. Like
Right.
why we never way back then just said, hey, MOA, mil. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's what we were dealing with. And then when you saw that reticle and ran it under speed with holds, you were just beside yourself. Then you really kind of gut the reticle. But most people looking through it on a flat range, only shooting 100 or 200, were like, nah, this is stupid. Until you
Right.
get out there and you're like, oh, I just saw where that dirt hit on my reticle.
Yeah.
Hold dirt to target, press trigger. Oh, there's an impact.
Hey,
You're just
look,
like,
Oh, that's
you're
how
like,
that
yeah.
works.
You're like, the files are in the computer? What?
Impossible.
It's a preset.
Yeah.
So this
So
would have been like just like SR-25s, 308s, and Magnums, right?
yes, I brought out a custom Win Mag. Um, golly, I know they're still around. Man, their guns were good. Fudge. I can't remember, but if they should be credited in the video because we gave all that information to
Yeah.
the head shed. Unless somebody removed it, it should all be in there. But yeah, we had that. I think we had an MRAD. I think Steve shot an MRAD. Here's the deal. So I kind of shot everything out there, and of course I love the OBRs and the SR-25, right? Like there's just something about the eclectic SR-25 that Knights Armament did. But I also sucked on wind calls, right? So usually, if you run a Win Mag, that helps on your Win calls, because you're dealing with like an 8 mile an hour, like every 8 mile an hour, maybe even 9 start to affect
Yeah.
you on a Win Mag. Whereas on a
Yeah.
308, it's every 3 mile an hour. So, you know, a
Right.
little more recoil into my shoulder led to hold left edge, hold right edge,
Right.
while somebody else is holding 2.5 mils. You know
Right.
what I mean, for the same shot. If you're running, especially if you're running a gasser,
Yeah.
there's just a lot more ass you have to put behind the gun because you're riding a couple recoils that you don't on a bolt, in my opinion.
Right.
But
All
yeah, so
right.
we shot gassers. Mike ran a bolt 18-inch Nighthawk. I think that was it. Yeah, it was an 18-inch Nighthawk. He ran that all the way out to a mile.
And
So
so this the LaRue, not Predator, the OBR, that was a
mhm,
direct competitor to the SR-25, right? To just as like
it
a market
was.
stopgap sort of deal.
Well, I'm sure it didn't make Trey feel good that LaRue came out with such an accurate gun. And therein lies, some slight differences is that when you make it really accurate, then it's more susceptible to the environment, right? Just like any
Right.
bolt gun is when you're holding
Yeah.
really tight tolerances.
Okay.
So I felt, you know, hopefully, like who knows on what day Mark might hear this video or something like that. If it's a good day, I won't get yelled at, but if it's a bad day, it's like ARFCOM's going to get lit this shit up. But at the time, you could get, in my opinion, 600 good rounds before you needed to be messing around with the OBR. You know,
Six
and
600
I
rounds.
like 600 good rounds where you need to start either clean it or start throwing some oil on it, right? Like get her oiled back
Oh,
up. She's getting
Really?
carbed. She's
starting to
getting
do some
gunky in there.
maintenance to it. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't look at that as a bad thing because I feel like the OBR was the stopgap of a semi-auto meets precision accuracy, right?
Right.
And the SR-25, I mean, I had some really tight shooting guns, but Trey would go handpick my barrels for me. Like they
Right.
would see
Okay.
what the barrels were doing, but
Yeah.
usually all his guns were like under a minute, right? They weren't like
Okay.
quarter-minute guns. The difference though is like especially when Trey came out with his I think it was like a sand carrier bolt or something. It had
Yeah,
these
the sand
cuts in it.
cutter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that took that gun and put it at about 900.
The,
Um,
the the sand cuts made that much of a difference.
I believe it
Wow.
made that much of a difference because inside the receiver, those tolerances were so tight that the
Right.
dirt had to go somewhere in the carb. And what you would find is when you took the gun apart, it was all jammed in between the sand cutters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it got a little bit more out of it. And then, the good news about competition is it makes everybody step up, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so it's they were all great guns. And come on, let's get real. There's a difference between shooting a Wilson Combat or a Nighthawk or an Infinity, right?
Yeah.
And then shooting a Glock and go,
Yeah.
which one's going to need
Yeah.
a little bit of maintenance, bro? But
Right.
but what are the other guns capable of doing that the Glock's not at
Yeah.
yardage, right?
Yeah.
At that level of accuracy, and fair is fair, right? Like you're going to have to clean generally those style of guns earlier than you're going to have to clean a Glock and worry about it. So I feel like everybody thinks like, oh, if I buy this most expensive thing, it's like a gobstopper on Willy Wonka. You know what I mean? Like I
It'll
spent this much
Yeah.
money.
it'll last forever.
Yeah, there's a difference between obviously a Toyota Camry and a you
Right.
know a Ferrari. The
Yeah.
maintenance is going to be a little bit more intensive.
I would say for
Yeah.
the 2011s, though, well, actually, I wouldn't say, I would ask. Would you say, or would you, I mean, are 2011s more prevalent now? I mean, just because of the magazine seeming to be a little bit more squared away, or would you still say I mean, by and large, it's still Glocks and M&Ps and other. Because I remember you guys pushing the M&P pretty, which is why I have an M&P, by the way. It's because you had one in that
What?
first Magpul video.
Is that why you have one?
That is why I have an M&P
I
45.
the
That
45.
is expressly why I have
I
one.
thought you were talking about the M&P 2.0 you have. I was
No,
gonna
but
say.
I tried to get the ATEI gun, but that's sold on Gunbroker recently.
Dude,
That bummed me out.
those things of just a buddy, a student of mine just showed me one. I haven't seen
Yeah.
that gun in years, and dude,
Yeah.
the triggers that Doug did,
Yeah.
the performance center need to go take a look at that trigger.
Yeah.
Like that
I
trigger
pressed
that
the
was
trigger
on
on one
my
of them, yeah.
gun,
Mhm.
it's freaking sweet. Like
Yeah.
it's light, and the reset is so short. So kind of, I guess if we went back in time, we would say Glocks were predominant in class. That was it, right? And then M&P started coming out. You started seeing some of the Springfield. Damn, can't remember that gun. I hated that
XD.
gun too. Yeah, that trigger was just like a bag of mush. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, hats off if Robbie,
Oh, Latham.
damn, Latham's running
Yeah.
that trigger. I'm
Yeah.
like, he's a fucking beast.
I
But
know.
then the match came out and the trigger got better. I just wasn't a big fan of that gun. And then as things progressed, like the high dollar Glock market came out, the salience, you know, agency. Then I started doing things with Fowler because I wanted to get back to what the old salients were like, which were really accurate guns. And Fowler was able to get them back to that. So we did batches of guns through Shooting Surplus,
Okay.
and you were getting
Interesting.
like, in a sense, like in my opinion, a match Glock. So kind of like what kind of ticked me off towards the end of the salient side of the house was my original guns were done by a guy named David Barilla. He did mine, Pat Max, as far as I know, Kyle Lamb, and
These are the
I
tier
will tell you,
one.
yeah.
Okay.
And what that was is if you paid extra, you got an oversized Barstool barrel that got hand fit to that gun.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it's going to work in another gun. It means it's hand fit to that gun.
Right.
So they show up, we're on a
Interesting.
range in California, and I'm zeroing the gun. So I usually zero at 50 yards and then 25 yards. And then what I like to do is I like to just see where she's printing. So I lay down on the ground, dude. I get all Gucci, bag it up, you know, take my time, and I shoot a 3-inch group out of their gun at 50. And this is just with like, you know, this isn't like hollow points, which probably would have tightened up. Well,
Yeah.
David, the guy who made the gun for me, he was a Navy national match guy. And he's like, how big of a group did it shoot? And I was like, this. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, no way. He's like, it'll shoot better than that. And I'm like, well, probably. I mean, bro, I'm doing my best here. Like, you know,
Doing my
dude, so
best.
humbling, so humbling. He stands up, national match style, one-handed, and shoots a 1.5-inch group with that gun.
Yeah.
I was just like, you ever, you know, like when you got to leave a bunch of kids, right? When you were little, right? Like whether you were playing ball and your mom calls you or whatever it was, and you just like, but you also did shitty that day and you just like kick the ball back home, just like kicking rocks and pine cones and shit. I was like, that's totally how I felt after we walked up and looked at the target. And I told him, I was like, well, I told you it
I'm gonna
might
go
shoot
home
better.
now.
I go, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm misrepresenting your shit, man. You know, let me
leave
give you
now.
back my gold tooth that matched my barrel because I'm not worthy. But
No
yeah,
way.
so then what I didn't like about it was towards the end, that process was expensive. So the barrel's more expensive and the hand fitting, I mean, it could take an hour or it could take 3 hours or more, right?
Yeah.
Very time consuming. So they were like, we're going to do a drop in match grade barrel. And I don't know how you were drop in and match grade at the same time, but the
Interesting.
price was like the same.
Yeah.
But the outcome was not the same. Now, was it probably better than a Glock barrel? Yeah. But was it the same as like my Fowler guns that we went back and we're like, we're going to hand fit these things? I know it's a pain in your ass, but it's got my name on it. And
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to blame the gun. I want somebody to blame themselves. Like, I know my gun's
Right.
good. I'm shooting like shit today. So yeah, it's an interesting transition. Now enter in the high dollar Glocks are like $2,600, 28 in some cases. Now
Whoa.
STI gets a gunsmith over there that kind of starts revamping everything, and now you've got like an entry level $2,200 gun done by STI. So I think they've hit a market space where you're kind of like, I can get a red dot on my gun automatically, and I can get a 2011 high cap gun that's going to perform in some cases slightly better than a Glock.
Yeah.
Trigger's usually a little bit better, because if you screw with the trigger on a Glock, you mess with the reliability, because on a 1911 you can still have a good heavy reset and a light trigger, right?
Right.
But on a Glock, as you lighten the trigger spring, you have to lighten the reset spring. And
Mhm.
you can get to a point where if you're running duty rounds, you can start light fire and pin striking. So like for me,
Yeah.
my big thing is run the original springs, just change the connector to a 3.5 and polish the parts.
Yeah.
Right. Another big thing is open up the frame a little bit where the trigger goes back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's not sliding polymer on polymer. And of course,
Yeah.
if you cut that open and you got an aluminum shoe now, like you can, just that alone will make you feel like it got lighter. Well, because it's not dragging, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but now in a class, I've had to start running 2011s because nobody knows how to run them. They don't know how to work the safety the way they properly, right?
Interesting.
Getting up and down off the ground, that bitch has got to be on safe, you know? On a Glock, you just pull your finger off the trigger. Well, on a 2011, I've seen guys fall. And if you fall on some of these ranges, you're going to detonate that trigger because it's going to hit rock, debris, or something else as you're eating shit. So that safety is extremely important, and a lot of guys won't run it. They'll want to run from one position to another on fire, and it's like, man, you might be getting away with it now, but you're going to either hurt yourself or somebody else later. So now you have shit, like half the class at least are running 2011s.
Yeah.
So
So
is there just like lack of manual of arms for 2011s?
well,
Like
you got to
people
understand the younger group. Like I grew up shooting a 1911 back in the IPSC days. My dad
Right.
had an old Remington. You know, you had Colts. Like if you had a Colt, you were somebody in the IPSC community, and of course, then you're sending it off to a custom shop and stuff like that. But I grew up on a 1911, and then we started moving into the Glock. So I was still Glock 1911, still Glock
Yeah.
1911.
Oh,
And
Right.
then
okay.
I never really gave it up. And then all these other guys came in and bought all the Gucci Glocks, and they didn't want to shoot 45 and they didn't want to shoot single stack, right? So then you have these years, major years, where the 1911 was shot in classes, but not shot a lot. So nobody really paid attention to the manual of arms. And
Right.
then entering now
Okay.
the 2011s come out, comps on guns and shit like that.
Yeah.
I remember people telling me, you can't have a carry gun that's also a comp gun. I'm like, well, you can if you choose to do it, right? But that's not a combat gun. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna blow up your night vision. No, like I see sometimes bigger rings coming off, fireballs coming off people's Glocks in
Yeah.
1911s or 2011s than I
Yeah.
do with them comped, where the
Yeah.
comp kind of changes it to like a spark, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And instead of a flash. So everybody has an opinion, just nobody goes out there and actually supports it by shooting.
Actually does anything.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
it's baseless opinions.
Well, it's interesting. We were actually just talking to Hilton Yam. I don't
There's
not
a
too
good
long ago.
contact.
I'm
There's a
sorry.
good soul. I
Yeah.
said there's
Oh,
a good soul.
absolutely.
Good old Hilton.
Yeah, we had a great time talking to him, and he was pretty much selling us pretty hard on the P4, just kind of blending the two, because we were talking about the different the magazines, and I was making jokes about how you used to have to send them out to get tuned,
Yeah,
and
no shit.
so I mean in term, like how much were you relying on, or how many issues were you getting? Because I know I've seen plenty of pictures of you doing stuff with 2011s. I mean, have you noticed like a massive difference between the Gen 3 and the Gen 2 STI tubes, or like MBX and Infinity tubes?
And so I really like the MBX mags. Are those the Chile
Okay.
mags? I think I run the Chile mag. Uh, I think MBX. Yeah, MBX. I run in my Fowlers.
Okay.
They're some of the there's a little bit more going on, I feel, with their magazines, especially the spring. It's really aggressive, right? It doesn't have that leave them loaded for a little bit and then they feel like they won't catch up to the gun cycling as fast as it is. So, but the new STI mags, I haven't had issues with them. The old ones, you're right. It had that little bit of liner in the back. then you had to get it tuned, and then you had to like move and bend the spring a certain way. And like as well as I do, it doesn't stay like that.
Nope.
It just goes back to the original
Yep.
form. So you're pulling it out again. Usually you'll know because your slide's not locking to the rear, right? So that's where I think the Chile mags or the you said MBX?
MBX, yeah.
Yeah, their mags are a lot. I think they're a lot more aggressive in having a good slide lockup on an empty
Yeah.
mag.
I think they're
So
also like a
yeah,
really
the
thick
reliability
tube.
I think has helped.
Yeah.
Remember, single stack 1911s had been around for a long time, right?
Mm.
But we
Yeah.
only took them in the Lord's caliber when we ordered that gun. So not a lot of people shot 9mm. It was almost like blasphemy in the community until the only guys that hate 9mm 1911s are 45 guys that have never shot a 9mm 1911. And as soon as they do, they're just like, damn, this thing is a Cadillac.
I can
So,
see clearly now,
yeah,
9mm here.
it is. So now, especially with the ballistics, of what the 9mm is producing, the fact that you might get shot and injured, right? You might be moving somebody with your other arm, controllability with a single stack 1911 running a plus P, Federal HST or Spear Gold Dot, something like that. Those are really good rounds.
Yeah.
So then your reliability is good for shooting 9mm, but it's a single stack. So now you're dealing with capacity issue, and that capacity issue was being dealt with during that time period. Single stack 9mm were becoming more prevalent. And
Yeah.
then when they finally now have fixed these magazines, now we're jumping into the 2011 being reliable and nobody having issues of running them as carry guns.
Yeah.
Whereas
Okay.
before they were a competitor gun.
I think
Right.
my first exposure for 9mm 1911s, I think was a post on 1911 forum, and I think it was of John Jardine shooting
There you go.
one of his builds. And now his guns are like, or any of those Valtros are absolute art. But I mean, I don't know. I still think I prefer 9mm 1911s to 2011s. But
John would come to class when I would do classes in California, and I don't know how old he was when he passed. I can't remember that, but I just know he was like Yoda. I didn't care whether I had special operations dudes in a class. If there was a drill, he was going to win it. That's it. I don't even care if I said get up, get down, go prone, whatever it was. He would literally, like a Labrador retriever, just go hurt himself to win. He would. And he ran a 9mm 1911 all the
yeah,
time. And he was just a blazer with that. So now a lot of people don't realize that him and Fowler from Fowler Industries, the Fowler gun, in my opinion, is part of John's legacy
okay,
because Logan Fowler built that gun the way it should have been with John.
Hmm.
It's a Jardine gun. It just doesn't
Really?
have Jardine's name on it. Fowler's not going to run around and name drop it, so I will, because that's what it is. And those Fowlers, they're like infinities without the infinity price. Now, don't get me wrong. I've shot SVIs. Those guys make amazing artwork that also
Yeah,
work and shoot good. But you're
yeah,
going to pay $8,000, like, or more, right, for those. And to a connoisseur, I'm going to tell you, it's worth it. The gun's worth it. If you have the money, the gun's worth it. Whereas I really just, John Jardine was this name within the community that not a lot of people knew, because he was always in the background.
yep,
Like you said, you brought up Valtros, right? If you can find a
yeah,
Valtros, some of his guns could be $50,000, and they're not going to look like an Infinity. They're not going to look like an SVI and have that kind of artwork done to it,
Right.
but they're going to be laser beams when you shoot them, and they're going to run in dirt. They're just going to run, a lot like Hilton's guns too. Hilton builds really good, reliable guns as well. And I just appreciate that at least some of John's legacies continued on with Fowler and
yeah,
every step of the way of what they were doing. And it took Fowler to get to the Vanta 9 a long time, like longer than you would think to get there, and they didn't rush it. And those guns I think are like 4,500 or 5.
yeah,
So they're comparable to, pretty much everybody else's guns, but with a quality that goes unseen and a reliability that goes unseen in my opinion. Like he just I just finally got a 4-inch ported model,
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
and it's just ported a little bit because I don't want to switch springs. A lot of these guys in the industry, they think it's cool to sit there and be able to rack a gun with one
Oh, the
arm,
air rack.
right?
Yeah, the
The
air
air
rack.
rack, right? But you don't understand is that spring is designed under dirt and grime and carb to pull the slide back in the battery.
Yeah.
So I want a good heavy duty spring to put the slide back in the battery, especially the environments that I'm always teaching class in. We're down on the ground, you're shooting, the dirt's wafting into the gun. I need it to still run. Um,
Yeah.
so when I start seeing where guys or companies start telling me like, oh, well, you got to run this spring if you're just running 9 millimeter ball. But then if you switch over to plus P, we want you to run this spring. I run the same spring. You know, I need a little bit from the port to take off the, it's like the average woman yelling at you, right? That's kind of like a 9 millimeter. But then, like a little more aggressive is the Hispanic woman who caught you cheating on her. Like that, that's a
Oh, yeah.
you're in deep shit, right? Like there's an anger there. And I
Yeah,
just
there's
But
need
that's
that
right
especially
before
that
the chocolate
anger.
hits you in the head.
Yeah, yeah. I just need that bark gone just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't need it to shoot like there's no recoil, because the moment that happens, you start seeing, if you go up to a clean piece of cardboard, you'll start seeing powder on the target, little specks in the cardboard. Your cyclic rate, in my opinion, slows down. That's why they need lighter springs. And then you'll start seeing the ejection will dribble out of your gun. It'll
Mm.
dribble out, right? So I don't want comps to get taken to that degree, and a lot of manufacturers have it. Just take the bark out so we can keep the reliability. Reliability is the first thing that's important, right? Everything else is second after that.
Interesting. So, in terms of, I guess we can kind of touch on patterns. What kind of pattern or kind of trends are you seeing from when you started in Magpul in terms of like handgun usage to now? I mean, obviously we're seeing trends towards 2011s, but I mean, appendix carry. I mean, I know that's what exploded in the last like 12, 15 years, but I mean, are shooters
Yeah,
more
and it
informed, or I mean, what are you seeing in
I
terms of the shooter?
I
yeah.
think the 2A community has really just made it a lifestyle. Like, this is what you do. You throw a gun on, you grab a spare mag, you might have a med kit on you, right? There's some really good ones out there. Aptus makes a great one. He's a former DOE guy. Um, I can send you his info later, but there's a nice one that conceals well on the ankle for what you need. Yeah, you'll start seeing guys will carry a backup blade. Like, you really see like guys are really into this concealed carry in a manner that
Mm,
back in the day it was kind of like, well, if I think something bad's happening, then I'll throw a gun on, and you're like, what?
right.
You know what I mean? Like, you got a glass
So
ball?
ass
Where'd you get
backward.
it from? Like, and if I knew I was going to be in a gunfight that day, I probably wouldn't show up to that location. How about that?
Right.
You know what I'm
That's
saying? It's
that's the best way to avoid a gunfight is just don't show up there.
Yeah, like, there's a difference between a shooting and a gunfight. Like with cops, an officer involved shooting mean he shot the guy. Guy did something
Right.
bad, and he shot him. A gunfight's a two-way street, and everybody
Yeah.
thinks they're ready for it until they're not. And you can see that too when you start doing force on force, and you start seeing good guys
Yeah.
that are great shooters fall apart. I've seen it
Yeah,
all the time.
you can, what is it? The best laid plans never survive first contact from the enemy.
Yeah. So, I think now people take it really serious, and I think it's become like a lifestyle. This is what your keys hit the thing, when you come home, your gun hits it, holster, and methods of carry, tier 1 concealed are the holsters that I use, and they've done a great job, like, every year, or it was like, "Here's another holster design. Here's something better." They just didn't settle on, well, this is it, this is all we're going to do, and we're never going to make it better. And
Yeah.
then you start looking at the appendix side of the house, and back in the day, that was blasphemy. You don't
Yeah.
carry there, nobody
Yeah.
carries there. Y- and I remember Jaeger showing me a photo when he was a police officer back in the day, and he's like doing undercover stuff, and he's like, "Yep, all this appendix carry stuff, just following what I was doing years ago." And he's got a photo where, if you remember the Uncle Mike's, the
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
clip, the
Yeah,
I
clip.
think I've
You know,
seen
you
I
know
think
the
he
holster
used
that
that.
holds like three types of different firearms. That
yeah.
that one, and he had one of them, and he was carrying an appendix carry, and I was like,
God
we both
bless.
took a chuckle out of it. Yeah. So methods of carry differ, depending upon what people are doing. If I were to go to church or wear a suit, I'm gonna probably IWB. I'm not gonna appendix carry. Um, but appendix carry does seem to be the bread and butter, and I'll tell you, in a compressed environment, it's easier to get to than IWB when you're in a car.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only thing that I've seen that kind of took a really drastic turn is the war belts were kind of prevalent for a little while
Yeah.
when I came into the industry, and they were the big war belts
Like the
too.
Vickers style with the
I don't know
like
if it was Vickers. I just know that like High Speed Gear had them
yeah,
padded
yeah,
belts for all your shit, and I never really got into that because
yeah.
when am I going to wear a war belt?
Right.
And
Well, when
I
you look at your
preferred
crystal ball, obviously.
that is true. Then you're like
Yes.
you're grabbing your extra D&D points and you're throwing it
Yeah.
in your pocket,
I'm going
right?
to the Walmart. Better get the battle
With
belt ready.
yep, with some Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yes.
Um, So I stood pretty steadfast, and I think I have for the major part of the only time you usually see me wearing like even like some form of drop leg if it's raining and I've got coats on and
Yeah.
multiple layers. Aside from that, I'm either on the belt, on my own belt, or I'm appendix carrying. So my goal is to burn reps on how I like to do things.
Okay.
But as the war belts kind of hit this part where a lot of people started getting more into strong side and appendix carry and back into CCW mode. Like, hey, I'm going to come train out on this range and I'm going to do this. And then,
Okay.
quote unquote, performance shooting took over. And then
Mhm.
performance shooting took over. And then now it starts looking like IPSC race rigs, right?
Yeah.
Guys are
Yeah.
wearing at least cooler looking war belts, like GBRS or
Yeah.
Ronin or some of these other companies make the real small ones. But again, when do I wear that belt? And I feel like if I wear that belt out on a range and I'm doing rep after rep after rep, what I'm not repping is the way I normally behave when I carry concealed, which means I'm wasting time in a sense. So I feel like we're back into this where you start seeing a lot of guys coming out to handgun courses, but they're not really repping themselves in the right way.
More
I'm not going to tell them
performative.
not to do it because, man, I'm happy they're there and they're supporting a two-way community, right?
Yeah.
But transferability, I try to shoot guns that I carry and get practice on those. So whether they're a 4-inch 2011, whether it's like I've got an older Wilson carry comp that I carry a lot, and then my Glocks, right? Like those are the guns that I carry 99% of the time. So those are the guns that I'm always repping with. So I'm not doing a lot of reps with a 5-inch comped gun 2011 on a leg rig, or an IPSC rig. I'm not going to say don't go do that. Competition's great, and it's really furthered the 2A community,
Mhm.
but it's a different set of circuit breakers.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like having a dual set of circuit breakers. I just rather just myelinate one group and just say,
Right.
hey, this is what I'm doing. And then like if I were to show up to an IDPA match, I don't know if they allow appendix carry now, but back in the day, I remember Steve and I did, and that's breaking the rule because you have to be at the 90, right?
Right.
When you shoot IDPA, so you're not in like a competitor mode. And we had our t-shirts on, and I remember the RSO was like, son, are you ready? And I'm like, yes. He's like, you need a load to make ready? I'm like, no, sir, I'm ready. Good to go. Just hit the buzzer when you want. And he's like, where's your gun? Because he's like, look, and I go, oh, it's right here. And he's like, oh, he's like, that breaks to 90. And I go, yes, sir, it does. I said, is it a safety issue or is it like a strategy issue in regards to like the way I'm going to get scored and stuff like that? Because
Right.
if you want, sir, you can just give me a 0 right now since you think I'm at an advantage, and I'll just shoot this scene, this horrible liquor store robbery scene that's going to require
Why
37
am I in
fucking
bed?
rounds and like 8 reloads right now. You know what I mean? I'm like, I
Jesus.
love it. I love it. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
somebody took the time to set up a scene for me to test, is my shit in the right spot in case I get into, a freak gasoline fight accident,
Oh, yeah. Like,
You know what
like
I'm saying?
Zoolander, it happened
Yeah,
in that movie. It's
exactly. You never know when
possible.
you're gonna get into a gasoline fight accident. But the so we shoot, both Fisher and I are shooting this match, and at lunchtime, everybody knows who we are. So they're like running to the boards to see where we are and where they are. Dude, people were like pissed because when they get up there, all they see is stage 5. 0. Stage 6, 0. Stage 7,
God damn
0.
it.
Now, here's the irony. Here's the irony. These dudes were shooting in Blade Tech holsters with safari vests on, because that's what you do
Yeah,
when you roll. You wear a fucking photographer's vest all the time.
of
And
course, of course.
and they're running Glock 34s and 35s. Now, the irony was in an open holster, not from concealment at all. The irony was when we get back to the car, I just asked the RSO if he could load me on the range because we were going back to the car, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem." We go back to the car, we get our shit on. Everybody's taking their shit off and then putting on all their G19s and G26s and throwing t-shirts on over it. And I'm
Hell
like, man,
yeah.
you guys lost a huge opportunity. Somebody just set up a gunfight scene and you know what I mean, for
This
you.
is
And you're
perfect.
Really,
and
really
you're
test
gaming it.
out
You're
your
gaming it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're wearing cleats, bro. You're wearing cleats. Come on. And
you're
you
wearing
and
cleats.
you call the IPSC community a bunch of gamers.
I'm
At
saying.
least at least they know they're playing a game. You guys
Right.
think you're not playing a game while you're playing a game. It's like, I know what dude
is
I am. I'm a dude disguised as a dude as another dude.
Playing as another dude. Well, it's interesting, not to bring Hilton up again, but he was actually talking about what he liked about it was it was like, I have never in my years of playing USPSA have I had an encounter where I just wanted to break cover because I did it in a game. So, and then the other thing or really made a good point on was treating USPSA like a training mission is probably not what you want to be doing. You need to be treating it like the test, like your training has led up to it being your test, like your
Yeah.
proof of skill.
yeah.
And I thought that was a
As-
really, really good way of putting that.
And then
So I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say as like training goes, like you think airsoft is a good way to train kind of on the cheap, or do you want to just train as you fight with real guns and real ammo and
I don't have too much time to usually what I'll do if I'm gonna lose something, and handguns a very diminishing skill. Rifle, I can get back on rifle really fast within a couple mags if it's been months, right?
Mm.
Handgun though, usually, if it's been a couple months where just life's taken over and stuff,
Yeah.
it's usually I'll start working bullseye drills, slow fire bullseye drills. The reloads and everything else that's not really going away. The speed on the gun's not going away. It's mainly the accuracy that'll start slipping, at least for me.
Yeah.
And at least what I see for a
Yeah.
lot of other shooters when they've been off the gun for a while. We
Yeah.
all want to do the 7 yards and in stuff and just burn it down, but the marksmanship side of the house is extremely important for critical shots, right? Especially if we're out in public, especially knowing we've had adversaries bring in rifles to active killer events, which means I may be forced to take a far pistol shot, something that I don't want to do. But if the backdrop's okay, am I going to be able to deliver it there, or are you going to be the guy that either unfortunately has to run away, or are you going to be the guy that's able to deliver a far shot? Because the only other option is to get closer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And most people aren't going to get closer. Wherever they're at is probably where they're going to try to post up and shoot. So, I don't want to have to increase my distance towards the or reverse that. I don't want to decrease my distance to my adversary. I'd rather take them from 50 yards if I can.
Right.
I don't want to be any closer to that madness, right? The bullet can move faster than I can. So I've never seen
Right.
anybody outrun, 1,400 feet per second. So
Yeah.
let the bullet fly, let it do what it needs to do, as long as, targets foreground and background are okay. And we are having guys, Allen, Texas, guy brings a rifle, into a parking lot, starts smoking people. Brooklyn, New York, he starts smoking people on exiting the car while live streaming it. It's more prevalent now than it was before. So your pistol skills, they really need, like, bring enough gun at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
It's there's times where very few times you'll catch me wearing like a pair of board shorts and like a 38 special, hammerless.
Huh, interesting.
Because you're in Florida, it's hot as shit. You've got a tank top on, or
Yeah.
maybe you're in the gym.
Yeah.
I will say this. Filster makes a really interesting holster that's known as the Enigma,
The Enigma,
and
Yeah.
it's a great holster for working out. It doesn't run a clip system at all.
Mm.
It straps around your waistline,
Yeah.
and you can run a gun in the gym. Now you're like, well, Chris, why in Zeus's butthole would you be, out of all places, wearing a gun in a gym? Well, I would like to think that there's some no-fly zones, for bad guys, but look at what happened in Vegas. That
Yeah.
guy goes
Yeah,
into the gym, he starts smoking people,
yeah,
like, I don't
there's
wanna
no
be the
such
dude holding
thing.
a 45-pound plate trying to run at him, hoping most of the rounds will go into the, you know what I'm saying?
It's
Like,
bulletproof.
Yeah,
yeah, you're just trying to
just
Captain America this thing all the
just
way in.
frisbee through the
Just the
20
45 right to
Yeah,
the dome.
yeah.
the
You're
20 round
yelling
plate, just
infinity to infinity and
good
beyond at the same time, it's like,
to infinity and
shit.
beyond.
Yeah,
Well,
And then you get there.
it's
and then you're
interesting.
like, milk was a bad choice.
Ah,
Well, it's interesting. We've talked recently about there's a video with Chuck Pressburg talking about the offensive handgun concept in terms of bringing what you would bring if you
oh,
physically could not bring
the
a
offensive
rifle.
hand.
And I have this range card from Black Hills Design. It's really cool. You can kind of like hold it away from your face, and it contextualizes a lot of distances. And I started bringing it to church because like it's a pretty big auditorium, and it's
Yep,
effectively an 80-yard shot
some
from
of
one
them
of
are.
my seat where we seat to the end of the exit. And I was thinking like if you go to the grocery store, it's people are talking about, oh, you're never gonna shoot past 3 yards. It's like, do you know what 3 yards looks like? Do you know what 7 yards looks like?
I
You know what
well, I feel
25 looks like?
well,
It's
flat
not that far.
ranges the flat range kind of pampers you because they spray paint it on the wall. And you just have to
Yeah,
take them at their face. Now, I've been to some indoor ranges where I'm questioned the actual distances. I'm like, no way, that's correct distances. Like, are you guys
5
smoking
yards, like
crack?
you're spitting at it.
Yeah, you're just
Well,
like
the thing
smoking
is like
crack.
how good, like if you're tuning yourself up to be extremely burn it down, between 3 and 7, I get
Yeah,
it, right? Like
yeah,
I get it, but what if, right? Like, and here's the cool thing, that still has to be done, and I still do it. So I'm not going to
Right,
say I'm anti shooting 7 and in, right? Burn it down.
right.
Those are known distances supported by the FBI, right? But we know that it doesn't take a tremendous amount of work to get to that level to be able to get good hits quickly at those distances. But what I can tell you is every class that I start off with on handgun one, we start off at 25 on bullseyes in the morning. I'm not even scoring them. I just ask for keep it in the black. And on a
Yeah,
Kyle Lamb target, that gives you a X ring, your 10 ring, and it gives you a 9 ring, which maintains blackness. And I do this on purpose. I used to make people shoot the top bullseye, but then what would happen is when we'd walk down there and most of the bullets would be low below the bullseye,
right.
they would feel like, well, I mean, if that was a bad guy, I'd still gut him. And I go, well, no, that's not
That
what the
wasn't the
objective
target.
was. That's not at the target that you aimed at, right?
Right,
So now I make
right.
them shoot the bottom bullseye, and when they walk up there, majority of the time, they're not even on the paper.
Okay.
right.
So
So
it's a
do
Like
quick
you,
that.
humbling drill of
Yeah,
yeah.
where you are with your accuracy.
So is
I
it
like that.
better, like, if I was, like, starting to get more serious about my handgun and my pistol training, would it be better to start at 25 and get proficient at that and then walk it back into that 3 to 7 yard to burn down versus
That's a great question.
get good at burn down
I
and then move out?
I prefer to work on issues of recoil management up close.
Okay.
So again, we got to start kind of up close, working on trigger issues. There's a lot
Mhm.
of controversy over like, do you even need to bother working on trigger issues? Because if you can grip it like a vice, you can,
Yeah,
pull the trigger any way you want. And I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. But I'm
yeah.
also dealing with not a machine, a T2 here. I'm dealing with, a person, and I'm
Right.
dealing with risks, and I'm dealing with
We're
different
squishy.
issues, where the question is, are they giving their 100% of recoil management,
Mhm.
or are they at like a 60, and then I get them to 100%? But their 100% may not be like the guy to the right or left of them, because that
Right.
guy's
Right.
built completely differently.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And
individualistic.
so it's
Gotcha.
individual, right? So individually, the way I look at it is, well, why not work on a trigger at the same time I'm working on recoil management? So if your recoil
Right.
management isn't that good, then I can rely on a good break of the trigger, right? I do believe those two do need to go hand in hand. There is some debate within the community and controversy over it, but I do believe, look, we know national match bullseye shooters don't have the greatest recoil management, but the press on the trigger
Yeah.
is what's getting them most often 50-yard shot. Now the gun's in recoil. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's recoiling more than I would want it to in a shooting situation. So I still believe you need to apply both of those. So if somebody's recoil sucks, the trigger will save them, right? If their trigger sucks, then their recoil management will save them because they got good dominance on the grip. So even though they hit it incorrectly, they're still going to break a good shot, right?
Yeah.
Because their grip is really dominating that scenario. So I believe they're both equally as
Interesting.
valuable in shooting, but usually we start them up close. Then we start doing older marksmanship drills, ball and dummy drills, which that does have to be done at 25 yards. That starts to show a lot of anticipation of the shot, which we've got to work on
Right.
that. We need you to know when the shot's about to break, not just ease it back and let it happen. Because
Yeah.
in a real life gunfight, you can't afford to do that. You have to know when that shot's going to
Right.
break,
And
right?
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I've noticed in my own personal, like, when I burned down at 7 or 10, I'm like, oh, I can, drill a hole. And then when I march it out to 25, it starts to walk a little here and
It
there.
will.
And
Like
I
it's
have to,
natural. That cone of deviation is going to open up,
yeah, I really
right?
got to kind of like put more mental effort and more of to pulling the trigger, pressing the trigger,
Mhm.
and not just kind of just mindlessly, bang, 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 bang. So,
Sure. So what I do is as soon as I go out with a magazine, I get a couple magazines on me. I'll throw bullseyes up when I haven't been shooting for a while. I'll start putting them through the same hole, and I'm like, "Cool. How long do you want to fucking keep doing this, Chris? Like,
right,
you got this, right?" So
Yeah.
you take a few steps back, or you put the target a little further away. You do it a few more shots. You're like, "Cool. I feel really good about myself. Now I can go home right now, or I can continue to maintain that yard
pr-
line and feel great, right?"
right,
But
Yeah.
I keep putting it back further and further, and then I start focusing on where am I weak, and this is where I'm weak. Like that 15 yards doing pretty good. As soon as I'm slightly past that 15, up, got
Yeah.
a couple flyers.
gotcha.
Now I need to work on that, right? Brian Enos wrote a good book many years ago, a little book. It was called Fundamentals of Shooting, and he said you can go out to the range and you can shoot an X ring all day long. It's the one
Yeah.
that you throw out that's giving you now the most amount of information out of all the rounds that you put in. The question is, can you get that round that you just launched out back into where all the other rounds are, right?
Okay.
Right.
Um, shooters, you can go out. In his book, he also said, take a shooter who shoots, say 100 rounds a week. Compare him to a shooter who shoots 500 rounds a week. The thought process is, well, the guy who shoots more rounds is always going to be better. Well, the reality is, what is that guy doing shooting
Yeah.
500 rounds, right? Like, is he going into the gym with a workout schedule and specifically working on
Oh,
certain things?
okay.
Or is he just like blasting 500 rounds? An example of that was like we could go to an Olympic sized swimming pool and I could go
Mhm.
swimming, or you asked me, Chris, what did you do today? And I said, oh, I went swimming. And you're like, cool. And I said, yeah, I saw Mark Phelps there too. Well, what was he doing? Oh, he was swimming too. I guarantee the two
Oh,
of us are doing two different things in that pool.
I
I,
I get
I'm
you.
on my back and doing
Like
like
that.
floating side shit,
Yes.
and Mike Phelps is over there fucking training
Gotcha.
for the
So
Right.
Olympics, right?
so it's better to have kind of like maybe a lower round count, but higher quality of what you're
Yes.
trying to do versus having, just Billy Bob with his 500 rounds, six pack of beer and banging the same target he's been banging for the past 20 years.
Yeah, so think about it like this. Go out there, take I don't use a sheet of paper anymore. But just write down on a sheet of paper, real easy, like 3 rounds, and then off to the side, right, a C for chest, right? Because I like shooting the Kyle Lamb targets. It gives me like 3 locations from the
Yeah.
groin to the chest to the head. They're different
Right.
size targets, so I can't get away with certain things, certain behaviors at distance that I can when I'm up close. So I'll write 3 rounds for chest. Next one's 2 to the body, 1 to the head, but it's so I'm like, okay, that's another three rounds. 5 rounds to the chest on this one, blah 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 blah, and I'll just like line item it out, right? Those 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 round counts. What I do if you want to work on reloads, while I'm reloading, I'll put 2 rounds in a mag. I'll put 4 rounds in a mag, 6 rounds in a mag. I usually never go over 7 rounds, and I'll just stagger those mags. So within me running a 2 to the body, 1 to the head, I might end up
Right.
having 2 damn reloads.
Right. And you got
So
drop about
now I'm training on reloads. I'm working my draws, right? Because I'm drawing on every one of these evolutions, and I'm having to finish whatever that round count is in target location. So when you're done, you're like, Chris, how many rounds did you shoot? I'm like, 50. And I always leave one accuracy mag for the beginning and one at the very end. So I slow fire walk back 17 rounds,
Yeah.
slow fire walk back 17 rounds again. And when I say slow fire, I mean like you don't want to shoot at the very end because you're trying to be so damn methodical on a bullseye, right? Like you like it's to the point where you're occupying a lot of brain cells and concentration on those shots. By the time it's done, I shot 75 rounds maybe,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But there's 75 with a very distinct purpose, from
Right.
draws to reloads to getting caught dirty to target
Interesting.
locations, accuracy, things like that. And I always want to try to end on accuracy, so it's the last thing in my brain. So if I walk out in public and I'm at a Walmart, the last thing I was thinking about was, damn
Accuracy.
man, this was a hard shot, and I'm on
Yeah.
accuracy, not
Gotcha.
burn it down, if that makes sense.
Would how does dry fire help
It does.
into the live fire? And if so, how much does it actually translate into?
I think dry fire is great when you're trying to master the trigger, right? Like on a Glock, the trigger the trigger's sitting slightly forward of a safety plunger, right?
Yeah.
Then you start to roll the trigger back and you feel it kind of stop. And that's internally, a lot of us externally will say, oh, we kind of hit a wall, a predictable wall.
Right.
And then internally, what we're doing is we're starting to touch the safety plunger, and metal's finally starting to touch metal. And
Okay.
then you'll notice on the Glock trigger from the wall to where it breaks, there's a little bit of creep. And it's that creep that I'm most concerned about. I'm not really concerned about the beginning. I'm more concerned about that little bit towards the end. And then we're trying to get the hammer and sear as close together as possible before we break the shot. And that leads to better accuracy. And that's known more, in my opinion, the way I teach it, as staging the trigger.
Yeah.
The other way is just compress and fire it, because I can get away with that, right? And these aren't based on, I don't base cadences, I don't get involved in cadence of fire.
Okay.
A cadence, in my opinion, always goes, the student always starts focusing on what they're listening to versus what they're seeing. And I want you to
Okay.
see your sights and track your sights every time you're shooting and pulling the trigger. So if you say, Chris, how do you determine speed when you're shooting? I'm like, it's based on what I'm seeing. If I see I'm within a zone of acceptability, I go faster. If I'm about to come out, I slow down. So
Yeah.
the shot
Okay.
clock is a good stress tool, but I'm also not trying to shoot. I'm shooting it the way it's happening today, whether I'm having a good day, bad day, doesn't matter. This is what I'm seeing. If I'm seeing I can go faster, and not doing it based on my ears. Because a lot of times what will happen is you'll start seeing somebody who's worried about it sounding like tap 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 tap, and you're like, bro, you just threw 4 out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my cadence
Right.
was really good.
Sounded
Yeah, but you're
good.
not hitting the target. You're
Yeah.
just basing it on what your ears are, and you're letting your gun ride into what's unacceptable. And out in
Mhm.
public, when it's one thing when a guy's facing me like this, but when he turns sideways and he's running, you
Yeah.
just went from a bigger target to a smaller target, and your brain needs to be able to shift gears,
Right.
right? And it may the sight package, the size of the target, distance relative to the target, also generally affects the way I shoot. So like, I'm not going to tell you I stage at 7 yards. I'm just compressing, firing, going to reset, firing, reset, fire, reset, fire.
Yeah.
But at 25 yards on a headshot, because the guy's peeking up over the hood of a car for an LEO, I might have to compress that trigger back to get to the wall, eat that
Right.
little bit of a gap, and then break the shot. Now, I'm not telling you he ain't doing it fast. That's the difference, in my opinion, of an advanced shooter and a basic shooter. They're doing the same fundamental. The advanced shooter
Yeah.
is just duplicating it faster because he knows what
Okay.
he should be doing and feeling, right?
Okay.
So, yeah,
So
that makes
in
sense.
terms of like just trigger to trigger, we're talking about staging more specifically, and I know I've seen a revolver in your hand at least a couple times. So in terms of training with, because I know you definitely play with lever guns and you play with revolvers. Defensively, how are you? Do you actively use wheel guns? Because I carry a 625 and a J frame sometimes, or most of the time.
Yeah,
But
so what I'm looking for on a wheel gun is I'm looking for a definitive break, prep break, prep break. Now, if it's close, you're just firing, right?
right,
But if I am taking a 25-yard bullseye shot, it's a prep break, prep prep break, prep.
right,
That's what I'm trying to master. I'm trying to master
Gotcha.
that right there. And what it's really mimicking, if you think about it, is what? Single action
Singles.
without cocking it. Because I'm not going to tell you on a revolver not to cock it, but I'm going to tell you he must be really far away if I'm cocking
yeah,
to try to gain advantage in that particular situation. 9 times out of 10, I'm staging the trigger. if I'm running a DA SA gun,
Yeah.
the trigger is being prepped. If I'm behind the power curve, it's being prepped as soon as the muzzle goes orientates to the threat. So as
Mhm.
I'm coming up and those two hands are meeting, right at that moment, as the two hands are starting to meet, I'm starting to eat slack out of that trigger. So I'm trying to mimic a double action trigger pull into almost a single action on first shot.
Yeah.
Guys that are not scored away will thumb cock on their first shot. And then you're like, well, bro, that means you like single action. Why are you not running a 1911 and just leave it back in single action?
Yeah.
Right
Gotcha.
now, I will say when you get into like Langdon triggers on the Berettas,
Yeah.
on the PX and some of those things, he's done an outstanding job of the sweet spot, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
very definitive, as soon as you touch it, that hammer wants to roll and hold itself right to that spot. And you can shoot X and 10 ring all day long on one of those Beretta triggers that he's done in double action and then go into single action. And of course, yes, it's even better. The problem with double single is you got two different trigger pulls you got to
Yeah.
memorize, right?
Yeah.
A Glock to me mimics a striker fire or a 1911. So it means I got one pull. It's just a slightly different pull where you get to defeat some mechanical stuff inside. Vice
Yeah.
a 1911 or 2011, where when the triggers that I like, which is why I like Fowler does amazing triggers. The when you get a little creep to get on it,
Mhm.
but the moment in which my finger starts to move, it drops hammer because
Yeah.
I'm committing. And on some, you're like, I'm committing. Holy shit. When is it going
It's
to
still
go off?
going.
It's still going.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's like the
And at that point, I'd
USPS
rather
just
have a
takes
Glock.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to run a New York 1 trigger in my Glock because I like revolver triggers and I hate myself
Damn.
apparently.
Yeah.
Y-
You do.
What's the word?
Masochistic.
Masochist. Thank you.
Even yourselves don't have friends.
That was good. You got roasted by Chris.
Damn. That's great. Oh, well, huh. That's interesting. Because I know in terms of double action triggers, the way I've shot revolvers, at least defensively, was just trying to press through the break instead of trying to stage it. Just because I
Mhm.
know I used to read pistol training a lot, and Todd Green was kind of big on. Granted, he shot DASA guns, but he was big on like the LEM and the DAK triggers because they were consistent
Mhm.
trigger pulls. Well, I mean, DAK kind of. It was sort of like a
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
but in terms of having the consistent trigger to trigger, that was I have a Beretta 92, but it's a double action only because I don't like DAS
Because you
at
hate
all.
yourself. We just
Well,
went through this.
I like it. It's a good
There you go.
gun.
Thank you,
I
Chris.
competed with it for a long time. Not very well, but you know.
That's so surprising based on this conversation where it's been going. So you know
Wherever
what
we might have
the
been.
difference is, you really are you really are wanting to be a striker guy. You really do. You're like, I want one trigger pull, Chris. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's what
I
he's been
want
saying for
that.
years.
I know. You're just taking and making
I
it the
know.
hardest of the
Okay.
triggers.
All right, hold on. So I am
Because
playing with
I don't
this.
disagree.
See?
It's like a revolver trigger. Like it
Yeah.
just keeps going and it breaks. I
Yeah.
mean, the only
Eventually.
difference in a sense, I mean, you do make a point. Look, the DA trigger in your Beretta rolls. Like it's a
Yeah.
straight roll, and it reminds me more of a revolver trigger. So I
Yeah.
agree with that. And that trigger pull is kind of always the same, right? Whereas you're right, on a Glock, I just walked you through compress and fire
Yeah.
or defeat the internals for a more critical shot,
Right.
right? So that is adding a different element.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes the Glock triggers can feel a little clicky to people. And I can say that I never get a sensation out of the Glock trigger that reminds me of like rolling through a break, right? Whereas on a DA gun, I can say, nope, that
Yeah.
feels like a revolver, like I'm rolling consistently the whole entire time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, you still need to jump over to the dark side where the rest of us are at, but
I
I
I
get it.
have it. I have an M&P. I'm playing with them, sorta. But it
You
has
have
a
an
thumb
MMP
safety because I
because,
like
like,
1911s.
I have conned you into getting it and then sold
Yeah,
mine immediately.
I got an M&P right after he was like, "Yeah, you gotta try this thing
Yeah, I
out."
really
Granted,
talked it up.
immediately
When
got
he
rid of his.
when he wears the M&P, does he do like a runway walk where he's like this and he's like,
Sometimes. He
right?
sometimes does.
It's all in the runway
Like,
walk.
Listen, I normally carry a 625 JM because I like
Mm,
45 and I like wheel guns, and it's pretty good.
nice.
I get serotonins from shiny things like a raccoon.
Mm. The wheel guns are interesting. You know, like a good J frame, hammerless.
Mm,
People don't realize, like, if you were a narcotics cop, if I'm in a vehicle where a lot of drugs, exchanges happen in cars, fixed blade in a hammerless revolver, man.
yeah,
If you jam that in somebody because they're, trying to stab you or whatever it is, like the revolver is going to work unless you bury the cylinder deep in the clothing where it gets locked up in a rotation. But that semi-auto, you can push that out of battery and find yourself in quite the predicament in close quarters. And fixed blade because the blade's already open. You don't gotta
right,
hope it locks on you, right?
right.
Wintertime, wheel guns are in my jacket pocket, my hands on top of my gun if I want it to be, right? Um, I might have a 19 on or a 17 on, but it's going to take me some layers to get through. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah,
Whereas I
yeah,
can just shoot through my coat if I want to. I don't got to
Yeah.
worry about the slide getting fouled inside the jacket. There's, it's a tool. It's a tool. It's not going to be what I use to solve all my problems, but it does solve some specific problems. You know,
Yeah.
it
and the
does.
and these air lights are, dude, they're light. You don't even know you got them in a pocket half the time. So for a guy who's, say, a larger guy,
Mm,
right, um, and he on strong side can't get his left arm to that other gun, well, drop a revolver in your pocket, right? I tell a lot of cops, I'm like, with these new outer vests, they they can't get around sometimes to get their
yeah.
left hand to break ALS and real like if you they can, but dude, if they're being opposed immediately, they ain't getting that gun
Yeah,
out of that holster, right?
Yeah.
So they got mostly BD style pants. You take a little J frame and throw it in there. At least you got 5 rounds, right? To
yeah,
maybe buy you some time to get
Yeah.
to your duty gun if you get caught off guard, or you get shot and injured, and now your left hand, it needs to be able to access some form of weapon. So,
Yeah.
doing a hammerless revolver where things don't get snagged in your pocket is really important. So they've got a place. They've got a place. It's its
So
own art, like the shotgun is.
yeah, so you said shot. We've talked a lot about pistols. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on AR setups? I recently just picked up a Daniel Defense M4 V7 upper because my Midwest Industries upper is kind of shitting the bed with the feed ramp. So I wouldn't have just got a whole new upper. So what's your like? What do you how do you teach people to set up their rifles per se?
Um, well, I go through a lot of barrels, so
Here,
Criterion makes
the
great
viewers can't
barrels.
see this, but I'm showing for you.
Yeah, it's a good looking
The
gun. You
the
got your
audit of the
magnifier.
rifle.
The For me, when I burn out barrels, Criterion does great barrels. Noveske does them. Geisley does them as well. I'm usually just replacing the barrels. The uppers and the rails are fine. It's just a matter of barrel, gas block, gas tube, and bolt head. Right?
Yeah.
Like I
Okay.
want it head spaced for that. So I want to get a package in the mail that's got my barrel, my gas tube, my gas block, and a headspace bolt for that. The biggest thing is learn how to shoot first, get your hand position where you need it, understand what size gun fits you best. Like you brought up Steve Fisher, 16-inch gun looks like a damn 10.5 on him. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
like you just see a little barrel peeking out of his hand, right? For me, the perfect distance, since I do a lot of night vision shooting and low light stuff, is 11.5 with the rail going pretty much up to the barrel. And
Yeah.
that gives me my laser, my Unity pressure pad. And what that pressure pad does is where I would normally just put my hand just to hold on to the gun, you just put a pressure pad underneath it, and I don't got to reach for it. I don't got to
Right. You
shoot
don't
like
have
this and pull back.
yeah,
It's
okay.
it's in the spot I want it to be in. So that spot is key where I put my hand, and then I want all the big Barbie doll accessories to go around my shooting style. What a lot of guys do is they throw up all over their gun, then they go to shoot and they have nowhere to put their hand because they got shit
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right.
So just learn how to shoot the gun where it's best for you for recoil management, and control of the fore end of the gun, and then put your accessories on around that.
Okay. Would you red dot magnifier versus LPVO, which one do you think is,
So
or
now with the
is that
introduction of the 5 by magnifier from EOTech,
mhm,
Yeah.
you can gain a shit ton of zoom that you didn't have before with a red dot.
Yeah.
Drawback. To me, when I really need an LPVO is 4 to 500 yards. So picture you've got your 50 slant bar 200 yard zero on your gun. It does differ slightly if you're running like a GBRS mount because you kind of have like a 250 yard zero on it
mhm,
because of how high it is as it intercepts at 50. So I almost prefer a 100 yard zero on a GBRS mount. But
Okay.
going back to your question, which is the red dot. So the red dot gets you 1, 2, 3, easy.
yeah,
So 300 yards, hold neck, center mass shot, right? 400, you're usually breaking your red dot slightly over ahead of an IPSC
mhm,
target to get a body shot. But the algorithm changes and drops very rapidly when you get to 500 yards. So you're like, Chris, can you hit a 500-yard target? I'm like, well, hopefully there's something in the backdrop that I can aim at, like
Yeah.
sagebrush, because I'm holding
okay.
like I'm
So
holding
instead
like
of being,
five
like,
feet. I'm
right,
holding
is
5 feet in dirt, and then you're like, but Chris, you also have wind because now wind's really starting to affect you at those
right.
distances. And I'm like, oh, so I'm like 4 feet left in dirt on a
You're do
sagebrush,
you're doing, like, all these
and
mental gymnastics to get the round to
yeah.
go
So in
where you
my
want it to
opinion,
at
if
500.
you're
Okay.
worried about targets that are internal to going out to like 700 yards, then I'm going to ditch my aim point and I'm going to put an LPVO on with a 12 o'clock red dot. 12 o'clock red dot for taking any targets internally really quickly if I don't want to use my scope. 2, for
Mhm,
passive shooting under nods. Um, I want that. And then now, if I've got the right reticle, I've got not only can I run a hold that I can't do on my aim point, on my aim point, I can't run a hold in there. So I don't have like a definitive, hey, 2 mils to pull trigger center mass on a target. And I also am able to adjust wind as well based on a reticle. So I don't have those inside on a red dot with a 5 magnified
Yeah.
power. So really what in my opinion, when I start using LPVOs, I'm starting to press more distance than I am up close and personal. And I need the win. I need to know what I need win hacks on there. So if I just missed a target, I can make a quick correction and send it again. And I'm using an elevation. I'm using a hold for
Yeah.
that. So inside my reticle, I'm just going to hold for a 500-yard shot, 6 or 7. And I can't do that on an aim point. What I can do on an aim point is walk it in,
okay.
but that's not a consistent. I can do a repeatable shot each and every time, right? Because
Right.
I'm holding on
Okay.
something else. I'm holding on some
Yeah.
other shit that I hope
Right.
There's
has
no
to be there.
reference.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no reference
And
on it.
then if
Okay.
you're doing, like, an actual, like, real life shooting, like, you don't wanna be walking in
No,
rounds.
no.
You don't
And you got
wanna
to
Area of
figure out, like,
effect.
you got to understand what I said was I'm able to walk it in because of the backdrop
Yeah.
being dirt
yeah,
behind the target,
Yeah.
whereas
gotcha.
now it's a city street, right?
Right.
And now I need to be a lot more precise in what I'm doing. So the LPVOs are good. Most of the time I'll leave mine on like 6 power
Mhm.
for the most part, and then just leave my red dot on for anything close. I'll just take it because if you put a red dot on like a 193, you're pretty much shooting a GBRS mount. You're shooting about a 293 is what you're doing. And if you're used to
Yeah.
that, it's no big deal. So
Interesting. And then we very, at the beginning, before we hit record, we were talking about shotgun shells and shotguns, and what's your take on, like, AR, pistol, shotgun? Which would you recommend for, say, like, a home defense? Say for me, I live in an apartment, so we'll just use me as a training, I guess. So my apartment, shotgun, rifle, pistol, what should I be going for?
so there was a big argument years ago. I cannot remember his name because he did a lot of work with the FBI on ballistics. So this is where we start getting into SWAT teams didn't want to run in internal structures, apartments, houses, and shit like that, especially when you're taking rooms simultaneously, right? So you got guys making entry, you're blowing by them, going into the next room, and you
Right.
could be opposing one another.
Right.
So in running the MP5, they were like, "Hey, we feel safer running a 9 millimeter projectile vice, a rifle caliber round internal." Right. What the study showed was the 9 millimeter went through drywall and maintained its integrity much better than 5.56 did. As soon as it hit that drywall, it was
Mhm.
immediately tumbling, going through the next piece of wall. So now enter in what you're talking about. If that's happening with a 9 millimeter, it's going to happen with a shotgun. Shotgun is extremely devastating. If you're running slugs and you were my neighbor, you're pretty much sending your rounds into my house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're running slug, even op buck will because they're just
It's
round balls. So even if it hits shit and it degrades part of the ball or part of the slug and rips a piece off, it still
mhm.
maintain its like flight the way it wants to. If you ever look at plates, I think they've changed to RF1 and RF2 now, but we mostly most of the guys know it as level 3, level 4 plates, right? Level
Yeah.
4 is designed to stop one shot of 12 gauge shotgun slug, one 458 SOCOM, and then one 30-06, right? So
Cool.
you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that that doesn't stop a shotgun. It's like it'll stop one. They're just saying guaranteed. We don't know if it's going to stop two. Shotgun, what I look at is you got 435 grains, so 1 ounce, 435 grains going into something. And as the first part of it starts to destroy whatever that object is, the ass end is driving through, like the rest of the dump truck is going through. So though
Okay.
the front of the dump truck got destroyed, the ass end of the dump truck just went
It's
through
still
target,
going.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
The
thing with
cab's
lever
gone, but
guns,
the
things
pack's
like
still.
that.
No.
Like I run 500 grainers out of my lever gun, dude. You're penetrating shit with that, right? There's no
Yeah.
coefficient. It's a hunk of lead going down range. So internally, you got to be really careful when you run any pistol calibers in your house, and especially the 12 gauge shotgun in a house
I
internal.
I do have these soft point Winchester Leo rounds that I have in my rifle, uh, purposely for that, so I don't overpen. If I hit whatever I gotta hit, and hopefully it just mushrooms and just stops at
Sure.
them. It does an overpen and hit Timmy. We've killed Timmy quite a lot over the years doing this podcast. He's our
Unintended
Yeah.
stand-in.
Timmy.
Yeah, he's our stand-in for the unintended bystander that we killed.
Timmy.
Yep, pretty
Timmy.
much.
Brought to you by Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Brought to you by
Shit.
Caddyshack. Yep.
Yes.
Timmy.
So.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
just they're great weapons.
Yeah.
I like 870s for pumps because if I gotta change munitions, I don't lose one like I do on a Mossberg when I'm doing slug changeovers and stuff, which I still think should still be taught. Um, and then all my shotguns have been worked on as Benellis to make them work. So
I
that
got a
gets really
590, so I
that
sidestepped all
gets
that silliness.
that gets really expensive. Um, and I
Have you played
think,
with the
one of
1301s?
those are, like the Langdon guns is where you're like, okay, I got a gun for a reasonable price that basically operates like a Benelli that's
Right.
been worked on, right? So yeah, that's usually what I like in my arsenal. As much as I like Remington, I'm not a big 1187. I'm not an 1100 guy. The gas starts getting too finicky on those things. Then they had another one that's kind of like a Benelli but not, and then that shit was heavy as hell. Um, then any of the ones that are magazine fed, the first thing I do, and I know it breaks people's heart. I just asked a student, I'm like, hey bro, do you get a backup gun? And he's like, why? And I'm just like, oh, just
Why?
you get a backup gun. And he's like,
It's
yeah, I got a
unrelated.
Mossberg and get a Mossberg in a car. And I'm like, cool. Make sure you zero when you zero your whatever this gun is. And then,
Whatever this thing is.
usually half a day into it or less, that gun's not working. I don't know
Oh,
what it is. Feeding issues, all sorts of issues, right?
maybe it's because it's
So
probably Turkish.
that could be, you know, a Druish princess. The
Jewish.
Druish princess. Marriage. Is an institution.
What brings us
Um,
here together
yeah.
today,
Sorry, my
Princess
I
Bride?
have to keep. I know I have to keep my sanity
Yeah,
with movie quotes, but
God bless her. We
absolutely.
we
yeah,
have
We're the
family
same way.
movies. When I married my wife, and that was one of the movies. My mom, dad, and I all sat down and we were like, "Listen, this is one of the movies you have to." That and Top Gun, but you got to sit down and watch this and enjoy this movie. And now all she does is quote it.
It's
I
inconceivable.
It's
Yeah,
fucking
I
great.
once dated a chick, and we sat down to watch Blues Brothers. She was like, "I just don't get it. I don't think it was that funny." After that, I dumped her after we had
I
sex.
don't
I was
find you
like, "This
funny.
this this
After
relationship
that,
is going
This
nowhere
has gone nowhere, madam.
right now. You just can't trust that kind of woman."
Fucking
Who doesn't like
incredible.
Blues Brothers? The
Oh my god.
yeah, but those just the 870 and the Mossbergs, the 590s, the 500s, you're just really solid guns. In fact, it's a one gun I tell guys, dude, if you can buy one used, go buy one used. Somebody else has like worked the action
Broken it
for
in.
you and
Yeah.
really worn it
yep,
in.
that's
You can't
Mhm.
beat that.
that's
You
exactly
can't
where I
beat
got
that.
mine. I got mine from a gun shop, 590A1,
Buttery
Yeah.
smooth.
buttery
Yep.
smooth. Yep.
Yeah, I have actually the only Mossberg pump gun I have is a 20 gauge, but it was from when I was a kid. But I have an A300, so shotgun
You,
things.
you can
Actually, and I have
harass
a
them.
Winchester 1300. So yeah, I the ejector spring broke on that, but I should probably buy an 870 or something. I don't know.
Well, remember
I got
this, pumps work great for less lethal too, right?
yeah
So less lethal, you need to be able to run a pump. Doesn't mean that you can't just run the action on a gun,
yeah
but you know, it's to me, I'd rather just work a pump if I'm running less lethal,
Yeah.
or if I'm breaching or something like that, run a pump, than have to be messing around with just constantly hand pulling the
yeah
action back.
yeah.
So
Eh, Makes
now
sense.
that's what makes the M1 really cool,
Just
vanilla.
switching between the two.
Because a lot of people don't realize
Yeah.
you can just switch between the two, go pump, and then go semi-auto if you want to.
Yeah.
Oh
So
wow,
people are
that's
like,
cool.
"What?
You don't have to
What?
deal with the
Wait, wait,
crappy
wait, wait, wait,
spas.
wait, wait. Hold on. I was gonna say, didn't the French figure that
Fuck
out?
that gun. It's Italian.
Oh, is it? I thought it
It's
was.
a
Oh
Franchi.
yeah,
Yeah, it's Italian.
it's Italian.
But I
Mm,
mean, technically, it's a Beretta now. Beretta owns Franchi.
I guess that's true."
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chris. I mean, this has been absolutely
Amazing.
incredible. Yeah, I
Yeah, if you
mean,
guys want to
just
do it again, we'll pick up where we left off.
Yes,
And
yeah,
yes, we
absolutely.
do
I
want
was
to do
gonna
it again.
say,
Absolutely.
where do you guys like not your home address, so you get a bunch of stalkers and shit, but
thank you.
Jacksonville.
where?
I'm from.
Oh, Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. I'm
Shit, man.
Sarasota region.
I lived up
So.
on the north side of Jacksonville.
Oh,
Right on.
okay.
We could have been neighbors. Yeah,
Now
it's so
Kevin's from
populated up there
Jackson.
now.
Yeah,
Kevin's from that region.
yeah. Born and raised,
Originally.
baby. Duval.
Yeah, we went to high school
Duval,
together
good
in
old
Maryland.
Duval County.
Yes, sir.
Wake up every day and look at the murders that have
Duval.
happened around your city, and you're like, "What?"
Hey, man, I'm
I
cool
think
with
it's
those people.
I think Jacksonville's like the second largest sheriff's department. Like it's a big sheriff's
Whoa,
department.
JSO,
that.
baby.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
JSO.
Interesting. Well,
JSO.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. We need to thank my beautiful, amazing wife for setting
God, we
this up
forgot
again.
friends of the
Hannah.
channel.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you so
Hannah.
much, Hannah. And we're supposed to do the friends of the channel thing up top, but I'm a bad host. So friends of the channel, real quick, is thank you Eastern Shore Sling Company, 10% off. We don't get any kickbacks from any of the discounts codes. We just like them and they're really cool. But so carry handle, is it carry handle? Kevin, tell me what it is.
Carry handle. Yes,
It's
carry handle.
it's carry handle, 10% off Eastern Sling, and then Hammy 3D prints. It's literally every permeation of the Carry Handle podcast, whatever the hell, because I can't remember what it is. It's also 10%. He's really cool. You should go get stuff from him. Literally thousands of things.
Charlie 19 Tactical.
19 Charlie Tactical. Mike
19
gave us a
Charlie.
discount code. The Carry Handle 10, I believe. Anything off, 10% off on the store. Great people. And then Chris, upcoming classes, plug your stuff.
Yeah,
What do
tell
you
us
got going on?
What's coming up?
First, I love like you would get fired right now if you were on QVC. Just so you know, with your sponsors over here, you're like, I think it's
I know.
who's the guy that used to do all the commercials.
Oh.
Billy, it was Bill.
Cocaine Man.
What Billy? Not Billy Mays.
Oh fuck.
Billy.
I
Yeah,
can't-
No. It is
What-
Billy Mays.
Billy
is it
Mays.
Billy Mays?
The guy
Freaking
that
Billy
hit his
Mays over
head.
here doesn't even know what damn product he's over here selling, but he's just repping a
No, no,
bunch.
no, no. We're not.
I love
For
it.
the record, we don't get any kickbacks. They're just friendly, and
I
I'm bad with
know.
numbers.
Well, see, if they start paying you, you'll start memorizing them. So
That's
maybe
what it
that's what they need to do
is.
if they listen to that.
That's
You
the
want me to?
trick.
Yeah.
We
So,
literally had one of our buddies
no,
on, Hammy. He was like, I'm just going to make a bunch of different ones because you can't remember which one. And I'm like,
Yep.
thank you.
nice. No, this year it's my parents moved in with us after they lost their house down in St. Petersburg, Florida, with the hurricanes, and kind of turned disastrous, and they're getting old. So it's a lot of doctor's visits, which are 2 hours away from where I live to 4 hours one way of driving. So we just got done finishing a range on our property, and most of the classes we're going to do is going to be hopefully people flying out here. That way I
Nice.
can kind of control the training better, because a lot of ranges now, they're like, here's your dirt. There you go. No steel, no barricades. And there's a lot of different drills that I could accomplish if I had the right setup, but I'm also not going to go tow a trailer, all over the
Right.
country and
Yeah.
bring all my crap and set it up and take it down and everything else like that. And being close to home is extremely important. So basically, in my backyard now, it's a 75-yard wide gun range, 100 yards long in regards to the berms, and then we can shoot out past to about 200 yards. So for like carbine courses and things like that, working steel, I can get guys to do drills to work on marksmanship that they wouldn't normally do if they're shooting 25 or 15 in, feeling
Yeah.
great about themselves. So the carbine can reach out there and do a lot of things. Most people just don't know because they don't get a chance to ever shoot that far because of the way
Yeah.
our ranges are. So then inside my shop, we're finishing up. We're going to do a classroom, and then this will be where people come, eat, hang out, and then we'll be back on a range. People can dry camp. Hotels are 8 miles away, so we're just trying to bring as many people here as possible. We're doing collaborative courses for long range with Don over at Fritz Precision, so he's closer to Lewiston if people fly in. And then there's a few classes that I'm doing that are in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Indiana, but that's it. We're just trying to keep it real small so I'm not gone for too long, because I need to be spending most of my time here. So if people get on the Costa Ludus website at costaludus.com, they can check out the schedule and see what classes we're doing. And what we're also doing here is going carbine 1 right into carbine 2. So if you're
Okay.
already here, then we're doing like 1-day revolver course. If you show up early, you just pay for the revolver course. If you don't want the revolver course, then you can take handgun 1, and then handgun 1 goes right into handgun 2. So we're trying to make it to where once you come here, it's such a pain sometimes to get here that we're trying to make it to where, we're trying to make it to where it's worth your while. Like you're not doing like
That's really
handgun
cool.
1 and then, like it's handgun 1, go right into handgun 2 if you stay
I like
for
that
it,
a
right?
lot.
Oh, that's
Um,
really cool.
Yeah, we're doing a lever gun and a shotgun. So we're doing a 1-day lever gun goes into a 2-day shotgun. You don't want to play with a lever gun? No problem. Do 2-day shotgun. So that's kind of how we're
Wow.
gearing it for everybody to make it a little bit more. I think ostentatious is the wrong word, but I feel like it's the right word. But I don't really know because Webster doesn't consult me, unfortunately. Because if they did,
Those
that would be the word.
bastards.
Yeah, I know those guys. I mean, at least for street language and slang, they should
I
be
know.
consulting me.
Emojis are in there now. What the hell?
Oh my gosh.
Fucking menaces.
So the
Yeah.
plan, Bryce, then is we obviously have to go out to him and
yes,
cold camp.
obviously we'll have to do that.
We have to
Yeah,
cold
and-
camp.
and then
Don't
we
go
can
to
do
a
another
hotel
podcast.
and just
Yeah,
go out
exactly.
there and just be out in the elements and
We'll
take
we'll
the
do a
class.
podcast before that, but then we'll also do one there. That sounds like a great plan.
I
There you
want
go.
to
I think that'd
camp.
be sick.
I like camping.
I know you do. I like camping.
Some people
too.
do. Some people have nice trailers and setups and stuff like
Nope.
that. So it's like,
Nope.
why pay for a hotel
I just
when you
want a
can sit
tent,
there?
a small
barbecue?
fire, my rifle.
I've had a couple students do that at certain ranches and locations where
Yeah.
they'll just tent it and they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
That's
thinking
good for you.
you should get extra or class credit for like rucking in for your first day of class. With all your gear on, just ruck to the firing
Hey,
line.
I'm here. Hey, I'm here for the class.
I'm
Just
here.
collapse. Just collapses right on the
Pass
ground.
out.
And our first student's dead.
And he's gone.
All right, this is
But if you're going to
medical
die, I need you to
101.
die slightly off the property.
Yes, just
so my
over
insurance, like,
there.
there's no
Can
conversation.
someone pull him? Can someone pull him
Yes,
that
pull him
way?
in
You're
the road.
feeling
Just keep
lightheaded.
going that
Walk
way.
over there.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, and we'll absolutely have you back on I'll get my boss to get with you because I'm
The
not to be
Hana,
trusted
will get
scheduling.
with you.
Hana.
So thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time. I'm so bad at doing the intros and outros. You'd think I'd
Hit
get
it.
better at this.
Hit it.
I'm hitting it. Hold on.
Hit it.
All right, outro.
Hit it.